guys have any idea how hard it is to do a broadcast like this and try and play a league game?
It's going to be an interesting one this week. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I couldn't get out of a couple of other league games, and so I'm practicing right now. T-Sims with me. Hi, I'm Anaconda. It's the AHLPSN this week. We're trying to squeeze this one in before the holiday weekend comes up, and I'm trying to play a few league games tonight, so this will be fun. You're going to hear more from those two guys than from me, and it's probably for the best anyway. How you guys doing this week?
Doing great. Good. Doing great.
So, yeah. It's week 4. It actually feels like we've been playing a lot more than that. But you know, with all the preseason stuff and everything leading up to the season, it's a long haul for you guys for sure in management. But yeah, week 4. I guess maybe some of what Vibes was saying a couple of weeks ago is true. Week 3, week 4, things are shaking out. Teams have made a lot of moves, and I think it's going to settle down. It seems like it's settling down at this point where a lot of teams and a lot of GMs and AGMs aren't so keen to go trading half their team anymore. At least that's what I think is happening.
Haven't had a chance to quite go and check the trades for the week, but you know, I'm sure they were hot and heavy. Probably get that info for you here in just a little bit. But it was a very interesting week for sure, to say the least, here in the LGAHL.
Yes, it was. Lots of stuff to talk about. A lot of people talking across the league about different topics, and probably going to get to one or two of those today. Our poll question, I posted it on the threads on the LGAHL homepage. The wraparound goal, skill. I use it. So far, doesn't look like that's getting very many votes. Cop-out, it's overexploited. If used appropriately, useful, otherwise exploited. And I'm a goalie, who cares, I stop everything. So please go vote in that, and we'll update you on what's going on with that here a little bit later on. We do appreciate all of your participation in that. Last week was huge. We got almost 75 votes during the show. So thank you guys for listening and participating.
So this week we're going to be talking about we have one of the Western divisions we're going to be highlighting, right?
Western Pacific.
Yes, it is the Western Pacific.
A lot to talk about, and at some point we're going to get to the one of the games that I watched this week was Rochester and San Jose, and we're going to talk a little bit about that a little later on. But at this point, week 4, you seeing any patterns really develop other than the fact that Rockford is going berserk, and we talked to Jay Claus earlier this week about it. What what are the things you guys seeing at this point that are starting to take shape? Some things that you think are definite, players, teams, whatever you think is really starting to look like this. I think is going to be the situation all season long.
I see leveling out starting to happen. Some of these hotter teams are still up there at the top with the Rockfords and the Rochesters of the world, but you got a team like San Antonio who's just kind of quietly crept right on up there, who's really starting to hit their stride now. That Western Pacific to me is wide open. It's just like the Eastern North that we had talked about last week, where the Eastern North has kind of started to separate a little bit compared to what it was last week, and it looks like the Western Pacific is that division that is very close. Several teams within just a few wins of each other, or a few points of each other. So I think it's definitely starting to level out a little bit. Some teams are definitely having better luck than they were in the beginning. But I definitely think it's starting to level out, and some of the other teams are just really flying still, like old Rockford there. But it's leveling out.
Yeah, I noticed a couple of conversations at several different points this week. Looking at that Western Pacific division that we're going to dive into here in a little bit, guys are talking about the playoff format and how you're taking the top 4 teams from each division that has 8 teams, the top 3 teams from the divisions that have 7 teams, and 1 wild card spot in each conference. And in a division like the Western Pacific, you're going to have a team like the San Jose Barracuda right now have 41 points. They're in 5th place. Bakersfield's at 44, 4th place, sitting out of playoff spots. Bakerfield's in the wild card, but then over on the other side, on the Western Central, Manitoba Moose have 33 points, but they're locked into a playoff spot. So there's been a hot debate about how a team that's got 11 less points is going to make the playoffs, possibly, based on the playoff format. What do you think about the playoff format? I mean, we're following what the actual playoff format is.
Right. I really like that. It follows. It's in lockstep with the real world AHL and NHL. I really like it. They tried to kind of slap that on us last year, right? In like the last week of the season, which it really got some people bent out of shape. Totally understandably so. It booted some teams from the playoffs, and it caused this massive uproar or upheaval of messages and people just going nuts. So much so that they actually reverted back to using the old way for the rest of the season, which I think was a totally fair and legit move by the league. That's several times now that the league has actually stood up and said, whoops, our bad, let's go ahead and get that squared away, and done it. And I got to give my hats off to them for actually doing the right thing in those situations, like this year with the prospects. And but yeah, I love the new setup. I think it gives it makes you do well inside your own division. It makes you want to get those division wins and beat your division foes and really create rivalries within the divisions, instead of just trying to gather as many points as you possibly can. These tiebreakers inside these divisions are going to be something to really keep a close eye on this season and see where that goes.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I can see I'm going to play devil's advocate for a minute to play the other argument, because let's say the playoffs started today and you've got a team sitting there that's got that many more points and is going to miss the playoffs. The argument can be made that you're letting a weaker team get into the playoffs, as opposed to a team that has worked their ass off and gotten as many points as they can, beating teams. They're not getting points by mistake. They're beating teams all across the league. And I agree with how it's set up, but there is definitely an argument to be had when you're leaving out a team that's, it's not even like it's a 3 or 4 point gap. If it's a double-digit point gap, it can be frustrating. However, what the playoff format is before the season starts, right, and you can see where you're sitting in your division and who you have to catch, and just look at it as 4 separate divisions and chase those guys. It makes in division rivalries ramp up a little bit, makes those games a little bit more important, because when you get to playoff tiebreakers and the head-to-head in division could be huge. And I don't think that if you go against if you're a Western Conference team and you lose a bunch of Western Conference games, but you destroy the Eastern Conference teams when you play, there is an argument there too to say, well, I mean, should you be in the playoffs in the West if you're beating Eastern Conference teams and you can't beat the Western Conference teams? Now, I'm not saying that's what's happening right now, just an argument based on the point structure for the divisions.
Yeah, and I could see where it could be a definite, just like it happened last year. There was a massive uproar about it, but the way I feel about it personally, this is my opinion. People can hate me for it or not, but I think it absolutely creates those division rivalries, and it makes you win inside your division. And I think that's key, and it gives a team who may have gotten off to a rough start, but it can give a team a chance to get into the playoffs, and that's what everybody wants in the long run. And I do understand the argument of, well, where we had more points than them, and we did this and we did that. But you know what? Like you said, everybody knows what the format is before the season starts this year, or most people should have known that. And it's the way the cookie crumbles, I guess. And it's going to be the top teams in each division. And so I guess the moral of the story is get to the top of your division as best you can, anyway.
Yeah. So when I'm looking through here and I go back to our poll question, another hot topic in the league this week was the wraparound goal. And there seems to be two sides of the fence here. What I see off of people talking in the shout box a lot is that it's a cop-out. A lot of people, some goalies in there talking say it's a cop-out, saying that, to try and play the game because there's a weakness in the way the game is built and the goalie can't move post to post fast enough. I don't.
Well, that's what we talk about all the time. I do too, but you remember, we've had this conversation a bunch about, yeah, we are playing a video game, but you know what? Try to play it as real as possible. That's the way I look at it. Try to play real hockey as much as possible. That's my thought on it. It's like, but you do have your guys out there who play it for what it is, a video game. They look for every possible computer exploit that there is in the game, and they exploit that. They look for the weaknesses in the computer programming, and that's what they do. Which I think is, it is what it is. I mean, you can't stop people from doing it, unfortunately. There's always going to be those people out there who look for that instead of actually just trying to play a real game of hockey. But, like we said, we've said it for years, the glitchers. It's basically a glitch, but,
right.
That's just my feeling on it.
Yeah, one of the answers I put on the poll question was, if used appropriately, useful, otherwise exploited. And that's the one I voted for because it is a useful play.
Absolutely.
There are times that you need to wrap the puck around and you can get a goal. But I think what we're talking about here, especially league-wide, when I'm hearing people talk about it, is there are guys who literally skate down in the zone, skate around the net, and try and wrap it every single time they touch the puck. They don't ever look at anything else. They never pass it. They're worried about their stats, and they're worried about scoring goals, and they're trying to exploit that same part. And I think that's where it's wrong. I think it's something that, you can, when I say exploited, in the sense that I mean exploited here, I mean you're exploiting a video game weakness, not a goalie player weakness. If used appropriately, the play pushes you towards where you have a wraparound because the play developed and it's there and you take it, yes. But when you have figured out how to use your body positioned against the boards where the game will literally take your defenseman and suck him up against the player but never actually let you hit him, go around three people and swing around the net before the goalie can get there and put it in just because the game will allow you to do it, that's different.
Well, isn't that, and while I have a few minutes here, couple of things I wanted to say. First of all, obviously it's going to go against the goaltenders because there are so many other players in the league besides goaltenders. So the numbers are always going to be there against, goalies whining. The second part of it is, what I thought about the other day is this a difference between somebody who is trying to play the game as opposed to the gamer mentality, which is exploit the weakness of, play the game, but exploit weaknesses if you find it. I get the feeling it's more of a gamer mentality as opposed to playing the sport. And I don't have a gamer mentality. I play NHL, I play maybe a couple of other sports games, and that's it.
Yep.
And maybe I'm not one of those guys who would want to exploit it because I'm not the typical gamer.
I would agree. Yeah,
Well, you're
that's
also in that.
exactly. Well, yeah, that's exactly my point on the whole thing. You know, it's a gamer exploit. Exactly. Well put, Sibs.
Hey, quickly,
That's the
real
way I
quick,
see
to
it.
cut you off for a second. They can see us on YouTube and asked if we are brothers. Yes, we are brothers.
Yep.
Much to my chagrin there. But yeah, I think it's an interesting topic because of that reason. It's how do you play the game? How do you want to play the game? And you know, a lot of the guys who play hockey play other games, and they probably have a mentality of a gamer. But again, I'm an old guy. I'm not. When I played sports games on Atari or whatever, it wasn't about exploiting glitches, and I just see there's so many more glitches in games like this on the PlayStation Network, obviously Xbox. It's more about the game than the platform, but I think that's the mentality, and I think that's why it happens, and it's fine because I'm not that guy, but I understand the mindset.
Speaking of Atari, do you have anything else to input on that, Mike?
What, Atari?
No, on the wraparound, because I'm going to switch subjects here for a second.
Not really. I think we've kind of hit the nail right on the head with it. Like, it is. I feel it. There's several plays where it can work out well. A nice, good hard rip around the boards or something, and you got a guy firing down the boards to scoop that up and wrap it immediately. Bang! He gets it in there. That's a great hockey play. You see that happen in real life. But the hole going down behind the net and just skating back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. When do you ever see anybody do that in the real world? That's all.
Get crushed.
Yeah, but it's never going to change. People are always going to look for those exploits, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Right. So, Sibs brought up Atari, which is a perfect segue into a little topic I want to bring up just for a couple minutes here. We're a video game website here, and we're in the LGAHL PSN for hockey. We're on the hockey side, PlayStation side, but this website runs leagues for many different other sports and games on here. And if you listen to T-Sib's podcast with Tris, they're looking to expand. They want to do some first-person shooters, things like that. So a couple of weeks ago, the World Video Game Hall of Fame inducted his second class, and I wanted to get to it, but at the time didn't have a chance. So the first class last year was Pac-Man, Pong, Super Mario Brothers, Tetris, World of Warcraft, and Doom. The second class this year was Space Invaders, Sonic the Hedgehog, The Sims, Oregon Trail, Legend of Zelda, and Grand Theft Auto 3. Now, an argument can be made that Pong was the first sports game inducted to the Hall of Fame, but I mean that was on Atari. It was made by Atari, and it was played very basically. Of course, it's table tennis. If some of you younger guys may not know what it is, but what do you think about games like NHL and Madden football? I mean, Madden football has been around since I believe 1988, and it was John Madden football at the time, and switched to Madden NFL in 1993 when the EA Sports finally acquired the rights to the NFL through the Players Association. And NHL hockey, we all know that NHL 94 was the first EA Sports NHL game. They actually had NHL hockey in 91 and NHLPA hockey in it was NHLPA hockey released with the 93 rosters in 1992, and then the Players Association came in and they dealt up with EA Sports. What's the argument for a game like, I don't know if Madden comes first because it's sold over 100 million copies and is in the top 5 selling games of all time franchises, and it's been running for over 20 years strong. Hockey's kind of a niche sport, and the hockey fans are incredible fans, but it's not as big as soccer is worldwide, or as American football is, but the people who love hockey, and it is the second longest running sports video game franchise in history. So what do you think, Mike? Is it something that should it already be in there? Should at least Madden already be in there that'll open the gateway to NHL?
Yeah, I would think Madden should be in there for sure, just because it's been around for so long. But for me, I mean, I'm 36 years old, so I remember those games like it was yesterday. I remember when they all first came out, and you know, they were amazing. But first hockey games, I got to go to ice hockey, just plain old ice hockey on the Nintendo. With this, you had the fat guy, you had the skinny guy, and you had the medium guy, and it was 3-on-3 hockey, and it was awesome.
Yep.
It was so fun to play, you know. And then after that came Blades of Steel, the first real game where you could actually get in fights. And you know, I think, you know, really probably everybody remembers Blades of Steel for being the first real like 5-on-5 hockey game. You could fight, you could score. You know, it was a little more intense than just ice hockey was. But you ask me, I would think Blades of Steel should probably go in first before NHL. But NHL's EA Sports NHL should not be far behind. I mean, it's been a long running tradition in our family, you know, for quite some time. And you know, I think it should absolutely go in there here eventually, if not in the next year, definitely within the next year or two, you know, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, personally, hockey's been my favorite forever. I agree, Blades of Steel, that was the first game. I think that was the first hockey game I played, and I had it on Nintendo. And, you know, something about the game is something I could still pick it up and play it right now for sure. I could put it in. I just put in NHL 95 on the Super Nintendo the other day. Yeah, it would. But EA Sports NHL, we're at NHL 16. They just released a teaser video for NHL 17. This game has been running for over 20 years. And there's, you know, Blades of Steel may have been one of the originals. NHL Hockey may have been one of the originals. But this game that's been running for over 20 years that people continuously buy and continuously play, I think the EA Sports version would have to get in first just based on the longevity of the game. But, I mean, Madden sold over 100 million copies. You know, the top-selling game of all time or franchise of all time, not just game, but franchise, is Super Mario Brothers, and they've sold over 538 million copies of all their different games. And the next closest one has about half that, and then it's really incredible.
Think those numbers would be higher. Like, almost, anyway. You know, I would think those numbers would be very close to being, you know, more than that. But, I mean, 500 million is quite a few. So,
right.
I mean.
Well, for a gauge here, NHL 16 has sold, let's see here, it has sold 780,000 copies this year. Not even a million yet. And for comparison, FIFA this year has sold 12.4 million copies worldwide. So you can see that based on those numbers, NHL is a niche community, but I would put the fans in the NHL community up against any of their fan base of these video games, sports video game franchises. But NHL not putting up those kind of numbers doesn't really necessarily mean anything. We know how big football is in the U.S. And the Canadian Football League up in Canada, but hockey holds strong. And for the game, even though it hasn't sold anywhere close to 100 million copies, just the fact that it's been running for as long as it has, there is no other sporting video game franchise that has run longer than EA Sports NHL other than the Madden franchise, and there's something to be said about that. Now FIFA is close behind it. They came out 2 years after NHL did, and NBA Live came out the year after FIFA did, but NBA Live has sold like it's sold less than 100,000 copies this year because everybody's going to NBA 2K. So I think for the Video Game Hall of Fame, I think Madden's going to have to break the sporting game franchise barrier to get in. I think that's going to be the first one to get in. But I could see games like FIFA and NHL following it pretty shortly afterwards.
Absolutely. I definitely think that's coming down the line.
So moving on here a little bit. Did you see that game last night, Pittsburgh?
Yep.
I mean, everybody knew Brandon Rust was going to score 2 goals to send him to the Cup, right?
Yeah. Well, it's I don't think playing Steven Stamkos. I don't know if I would have played Steven Stamkos. To be honest, I think they kind of crushed the chemistry that team had going. And it's like the big brother coming back, from college. You have your own thing going on there, and then he comes back and, boom, you're back to being the low man on the totem pole. And I think it's kind of that same theory that happened, with the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think they had a good thing going without him, and he just kind of popped his head back in there. He only played like 11 minutes or something like that. But, I think they probably should have just sat him out for a couple more. At least maybe if they got through that game, he could have gotten back with the team and really started practicing with them before the finals. But I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot by doing that. But that's just me.
I don't know. They lost Game 6 without him, and
but they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals without him as well.
Yeah, but there's an argument to be made that he is by far and away their best player right now. Kucherov's emerging, Druin's emerging. I'm not saying they don't have good players. They are an incredible team. I mean, look what they did without him. But I can see when you're playing against Pittsburgh and they've got Crosby and Malkin and you've played them to a stalemate through 6 games, maybe you're thinking that Stamkos is the it factor. You're adding a superstar to your lineup. And, he may not be playing the minutes that he's normally playing, but you would expect that he would do something to change the game, draw attention or move people around or score a big goal late in the game, something like that. But I'll tell you what, I'm not sure it really matters who made it out of the Eastern Conference because I'm not sure that anybody's going to stop San Jose right now. Jumbo Joe, Little Joe Pavelski, Brent Burns, Logan Couture putting up points like crazy. I mean, this team is stacked, and they are getting production from all 4 lines, and they are playing 3 defensive pairs right through, Paul Martin and Marc-Edouard Vlasic. They've got a tough team, so I think the Stanley Cup's going to be I think it's theirs to lose for sure. I don't know. I'm not going to say they're going to sweep them in 4 games. It could go 7. You never know. Pittsburgh has a lot of talent, but I don't know if anybody can stop San Jose right now.
No, I wouldn't think that anybody could. I think they get a rep for being a powerful team, and they're fast, too. So they've got the speed-power combination, and I think they're going to be a real tough customer come Monday night. So.
Yep, I'm glad to see Joe Thornton and Patrick Marleau get their chance in the Cup.
Yep. Well, moving over to the what the show is actually about, and that's the LGAHL this week.
I'm sorry, guys. I couldn't be bothered with what you were talking about. The Rangers have been at it for too long.
Well, hey, we haven't made the playoffs in over 5 years, so. But time is coming.
There was one more bit of house cleaning we wanted to do, and not take too long to do it, and that was the discussion last week on the message board and the talk about the suspension of a player who we didn't name, but we're going to name today because everyone knows who it is, Yeep93, and what the actions were and why it was done. And there was a lot of debate of whether or not it was fair or not and how many accounts he had and all that. What I want to say is one thing, and what I'm going to wind up saying is going to come right from the mouth of Yeep93. And I've been talking to him on Skype, and he basically said He said this, and this is an absolute quote. Saw a bit of the thread of people making numbers up on how many accounts I had and trashing you guys for apparently trashing me, but I didn't feel trashed at all in the podcast. I fully understood what you guys were getting across as a warning to the league. Keep doing what you're doing and don't listen to the critics. I'm not entirely sure if I'll be buying NHL 17, but best of luck to all you guys and keep doing what you love to do for the league. That is a direct quote from Yeep93 and how he felt about all this discussion. And my parting shot would be if a 13-year-old kid who obviously is showing a lot more maturity than most people can say this, then surely anybody who is at least twice his age should show the same kind of maturity. And I would hope down the road that we get more of that kind of look at it and response. He has a perspective well beyond his years, and I like the kid even more now because of what he said.
As do I. I've always liked him. Never once was I trying to ever bash him. I thought he was amazing. I was loving every second of what he was doing in the league.
Right.
And my whole thing last week was just to, put it out there as, just like in the message we got. It was just to get the word out there. The guys don't have, even if he wasn't banned for multiple accounts, like that's not even the issue. Like, I'm just saying there was a notice put out by the commissioner of the website, McDonald, and he said don't have more than one active account. So that's all we were trying to get across last week, was just to make sure that you're not crossing into those waters and treading down a path that you may not come back from. And that's it. It was never anything against the kid. I like him a lot. He's a great kid. He's messaged me several times. Like, I have nothing against him and nothing but respect for him, especially after that message he sent.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Last week was meant to be a warning to the league, to people. You can have as many accounts as you want. Don't sign up to the website with more than one based on the link sent out by McDonald explaining that it was what we were talking about. I really appreciate Eep sending you a message, Sibs. That's great. The kid showing that kind of maturity, 13 years old. It's really nice because he understood what we were trying to get across, and
right.
To be able to put his message out there like that, that'll help clear it up.
Yeah, and again, that's all we're going to say about that. You know how we feel about the issue. You know how we feel about the player, and you can certainly have your own opinions, because that's what that's what the shout box is for, to have your own opinion. When you try and crush everybody else's opinion because you believe that yours is the only one to be heard, that's not a freedom of speech issue. That's not what freedom of speech is about. And you know what? The good people on the LG group who run the site put that up there so you can voice your opinions. And I would, obviously you want to do it within some respect for everybody else who's on there. And if you do that, that's fine. If you don't want to listen to other people's opinions, then I don't understand why you're there. So hopefully, 99% of the people on there do that. But hopefully, for the 1% who don't, take what Mr. Yeep, said to us and understand that this kid knows that everyone is allowed to have their opinions. But in the end, he had no issue with anything that we were doing. And if the guy who has the issue, who was suspended, doesn't have an issue with us, I don't think you should either.
There you go. There you go.
Well said, Sibs.
All right.
Moving on here, you want to discuss a little bit about some players and stats, leaderboards, that sort of thing?
Well, it makes it kind of tough.
Yeah.
It makes it very tough doing this show on a Friday night for us. We normally do it on Saturday nights, but this being a holiday weekend for us down here in the States, it has made it a little tougher on us to do our weekly talk about who's hot. Because we do use those power rankings quite a bit, not exclusively, because it is generated by a computer. So it is a little bit tougher this week to find, who really had the good weeks, and and who didn't. But it's hopefully we'll be right back at our normal time next week, and we'll be able to discuss it in a little more in depth than we will be today. But anyway, I still think we're fairly decently prepared for it.
Well, here's a quick recap. Here's a quick recap. Jay Claus went off again, and so does his entire team. I think I'm done.
Yeah. Well, there's more people we want to talk about for sure, though, because there's people creeping up the season leaderboard here. Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of red up there. There's a little mini Ice Hog logos on there, but I see a few more teams up there that with some guys that I'd like to talk about for sure.
Well, yours, you guys, because I'm going to be in another game in a few minutes. By the way, we won the first game, so.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, congratulations. Good job. You didn't even have to say anything on the show. Do you want to get anything in about some goalies real quick?
Well, when we do the Western Conference, when we do the Western Division there, Western Central, is it? Or I forgot what the hell it's called.
Pacific. Western Pacific.
Western Pacific. We can do that later.
Don't be specific.
I want to talk about. I'm going to talk about a game between Rochester and San Jose that I watched, and a goaltender by the name of Perkins Pancake House. We'll get to him later. He had a good week. So did some of the regulars in the league, and I think we're starting to see some consistent performers now after 4 weeks. We're seeing the Perkins Pancake House. We're seeing Balea. We're seeing Bulging Twine, and Cooler, of course, who is perhaps the hottest goaltender in the league, and somebody that I would not want to face. So from the goaltending standpoint, we're seeing these guys really, game after game, week after week, are now showing that they are the solid rock that is, backstopping their team. And we'll talk more about Pancake House in a little bit when we talk about the West. But I'll let you guys talk about offensemen and defensemen first.
Go ahead with your defenseman there, Jonathan.
Well, if I unmute myself, you could hear me a little bit better. So, sitting at the top of the leaderboard is a guy I'm going to get to when we talk about the Western Pacific division here, Stivvy, as far as points and also record. He's 10-1-1. But a guy who's crept up the defensive point charts all season, and he's now in third in points in the league, is Fu Manchese for the Chicago Wolves. He's got 21 points, 5 goals, 16 assists, and he's a plus 23. He's got an 11-1 record in 12 games played, and he's only got 4 penalty minutes. That is incredible. He does have a power play goal as well. But when I'm looking at the list of defensemen here, and I see a guy like him up there on Vibe's team over there in the Wolves, it makes me think that when you see these teams at the top of the league, defense has got to be the most important thing, because every team that you see sitting at the top of the division has several defensemen in the top of the list here. So it looks like he lost his last game to the Ice Hogs, which a lot of people have done this year, 7-3. Had an assist in that game, but before that he won his last 4 games in pretty convincing fashion. 7-1 against the Pirates, 6-0 against the Providence Bruins, 6-2 against the Checkers, and 8-2 against the Wild. He was a +5, +5, +3, and +6 respectively in those games, and starts at the back end. Mike and I have talked about this in several podcasts. I listened to Sib's interview with Jay Claus last night, and he kind of echoed the same thing. He of course has a powerful offense on that team, but he talked very highly of his defensive core and his goalies being a huge reason as to their success this season. And I agree. I think that's extremely important. So Fu Manchese has moved himself up there. 2-1 this week, but had a solid week with 6 points this week, 1 goal, 5 assists, and was a +9. Also on the top of the list here, there's a lot of recurring names as we talk about, so I want to kind of skip through and talk about guys that haven't been mentioned nearly as much. And one of those guys here that I want to talk about, if this thing would pop up, plays for the Pirates. Give me 1 second here. So, Mike, talk about a forward real quick for me.
Oh, I'm going to go right to JLM 1410 from the Wolves. I think he's having a great season. Getting Fairman over to them in Chicago has really kind of just lit a fire under them. JLM had himself, 13 points this week. He had his last game was on the 25th, which would have been, I believe, Tuesday. But 9-4 victory in which he had 5 goals. He was a +4. He shot the puck 6 times, had an 83.3 shot percentage. That's pretty damn good right there. They did take a loss this week. They lost 7-3, but it was to the Ice Hogs. What are you gonna do? He did manage to pick up a couple points in that game, and then in his first game this week against the Milwaukee Admirals, he did pick up 6 assists, so he had himself a decent little week there, pretty damn good little week there. He is on fire, and I think the Wolves are a really, really good, really solid team. And then there's always Jay Claus. What can you say about him? I mean, he's just lighting it up along with his teammates. Rhino and Kraz. They're all super good. I'm sure people are getting tired of hearing about them, but hey, somebody stop them. That's all.
Down.
That's it. I mean, somebody did manage to take that second line out there in the Ice Hogs to overtime this week. And beat them. So
Yep.
It was an overtime loss, but so somebody has got it done. Maybe the film's out. Go watch that game. But did you get that? Did you get that pulled up on your guy there yet?
Yeah, keep going.
I'm gonna definitely go to Hockeytown. Hockeytown's slowly climbing that list. He's getting up in there in the top goal scorers. He's cracked the top 25 points leaders in the league. He's definitely a good player. I've played against him for quite some time now. He had a great week. He put out there 16 points, 3 wins this week. Had a really good week. He's climbing up the ranks. He's definitely a good player. I've had many battles with him in the face-off dot. It's face-offs with me, are huge, and whenever I come against a guy who really gives me a challenge, I remember who they are. And Hockeytown's definitely one of those guys. He's having a pretty good season here. He looks like he's just now starting to get rolling. He's 4-1 in his last 5 games, so he's a very good player. There's plenty of guys that stand out to me this week. It's tough to do it, without those power rankings. We really, depend on those power rankings, but we don't have to have them. But that Ice Hogs unit, I mean, they're all over the leaderboards. They've got to be stopped. I'm just glad we're not in their division. But there's a lot of guys that are, who else we got here? Broski climb up there this week. He had 3. Broski ripped off 3 wins this week. Had himself 8 points. He's having himself a solid year as well for the Bridgeport Condors, or Bakersfield Condors, excuse me. He's got 39 points this year. Like I said, it's really tough to do it without those power rankings this week. So it's we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants here.
Well, I have a couple of goaltenders I definitely would want to talk about besides Perkins. Of course, Mooner this week, he went 4-1. Lost the first game of this week, but came back with 2 shutouts in the last 2 games, a total of 2 goals given up in those 4 games. And this guy is just he's just been on fire. You know, he is second in the league for goaltenders in the most shots on goal, and yet he is having one of the best seasons around. So that tells
That's
you right there
insane.
how good of a player he is. And you know, we could talk about him all day, but we'll move on to somebody else that I want to talk to. I haven't talked enough about him, and that's Navzi for the Wolves. He's 14-3 at this point. He won all 5 of his games this week, giving up a total of 7 goals. He had a shutout against the Providence Bruins this week. He has just been another really solid player. And, you know, it's a couple more goaltenders who are really rounding into their team. And obviously, they're both on really good teams. So, you know, it's part their play, it's part their teammates' play. We mentioned 2 teams who are doing well. So, now those are a couple of goaltenders who I know we talk about Mooner all the time, but Navzi, I think, only has 16 games under his belt. A lot of the other guys have 21, 22. But he is emerging as one of the top goaltenders in the league right now. And, again, we'll talk about Perkins a little bit later.
Yeah, and obviously he's sitting right at the second in the league in save percentage. You know, so that's.
Yeah, and you know, that's I look at that, and I you know, when I sort the stats, I tend to go right to shots because I feel like that is such a huge part of what the goaltender is up against. And if you can look at somebody who's really like I remember last year, I think it was Sabres 930 on his team. Was just pummeled. He was well above every other goaltender in shots on goal again.
Oh, it was almost double.
Yeah, it was ridiculous how badly he got it. Captain on the Moose has 394 shots against. Mooner 347, and then 4H Pestilence right behind him. Cosmo, and then Perkins is number 5 on that shots list. So again, another guy who's playing really well. But he gets a lot of work, and he's earning the praise I think we're giving him this season.
Absolutely. That's crazy to me that the 2 of the top goalies in the league are sitting right in the top 5 at shots taken. That's just nuts. That means they're standing on their head on a nightly basis, basically.
Yeah, you know, they're up around 21, 22, 23 games, all those guys, those top 5. So. You know, that says a lot for the kind of you know, the kind of peppering that those guys are up against, and still they manage to put up great numbers every game.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
We may be at the time now where we talk about you know, when we feature our division. If you guys want to start that off.
Yep, absolutely. Let's go right to the Western Conference, and we're jumping in and we're covering the Western Pacific. This week, which is full of San Antonio, the San Diego Gulls, the Texas Stars, the Bakersfield Condors, the San Jose Barracuda, the Ontario Reign, and the Stockton Heat. And that's where I will start. I will start with the Stockton Heat out there. You know, they're definitely not the Stockton of last year, unfortunately. You know, that Stockton team last year was fantastic. They had a lot of great goal scorers, and they were fun to watch. You know, I think this is a fairly new team. You know, you got Flyers app out there as the GM. Notorious 250 is the AGM. You know, they've had a rough go. You know, but you know what? They're hanging in there, and you know they had 2 wins in the first week. You know, followed up by 1 win in the second week, 1 win in the third week. But you know what? They ripped off 5 wins last week, and that to me screams progression. That screams to me that they're starting to learn to play as a team, and that's the most important thing. That's why we play this game, is to play as a team and have fun with your teammates. So, you know, Angel of Death is having a pretty good season out there for them. You know, he's got himself 11 goals, 11 assists. He's only taken 3 penalties, which is pretty good. You know, that's a big thing for me. I always look for guys who take low penalties. So that's pretty good. He's up there with 21 hits as well. But he's also got 11 goals and 11 assists. I like that a lot in a player. I like to see him with even goals and even assists. That means they're distributing the puck and they're putting their chances away. So that's good to see as well. I think this team has a long way to go. It looks like they've made some new additions, though. You got some guys on here like Bubba B. Drunk, Hawkeye. You got some guys who've only played a couple of games for him, and I have strong feeling that those guys are the ones that helped him rip off 5 wins this week. So I feel for you, Stockton. We're right there with you. So don't all I can say to you is just keep grinding, and things will start to turn around for you. Even if the playoffs look like they may not be achievable at this point, just keep grinding. You know what? Play the spoiler down the road. Don't give up. Just keep playing. Keep getting your guys to play as a team. The progress shows. Picking up 5 wins. You guys aren't playing easy teams over there in the Western Conference either. So keep grinding away, and that's basically all I can say to you at this point. But then moving on to the Ontario Reign, I'll flip that over to V-High, and he has your coverage for Ontario.
Yeah, well, Ontario, they're run by the Nightman, and their AGM is Spider. And, their last 6 games this week, they lost, and they struggled coming down the stretch this week. It was not a great week for them. Believe me, I've been there. And one of the toughest things to do is pick your team up when they're down like this, when you lose 6 straight games. But before they lost these 6 straight games, they were 5-1 in their last 6. So they're still a solid team, and they beat teams like the Gulls and the Barracuda to start this week, and they beat the Springfield Falcons. They had a close game against the Rampage, who are their division leaders, 2-1. That was on Tuesday. And the game right before that on Tuesday, they lost 2-0 to the Condors. So they're playing a lot of division games, and these games that they lost are close. They lost to the Albany Devils last night 7-2. But every other game that I'm looking at on here was within 1 or 2 goals. They lost to the Stars 4-3. That's one of those 1-goal games we talk about. Same with the Rampage, 2-1. When I look across this roster, they have talent. It's King JD has played 12 games. He's 7-4-1. He's got 34 points. He's got 19 goals and 15 assists, and he's a +2. So what that says is they're scoring, but they're struggling to put everything together at both ends of the ice in every game they play. Spider, their captain, has 16 points. He's got 9 goals and 7 assists. They've got some point getters on this team. Voodoo has 24 points. He's got 13 goals and 11 assists. Wiki 17 has 13. He's got 13 points, 7 goals, 6 assists. Silent Killer 2705. He is their second leading point getter on the team. He's got 26 points, 14 goals, 12 assists. And one of the things that I noticed earlier when I was preparing to talk about the Ontario Reign is it looks like everything as far as point distribution for these guys on their team, they've all got pretty close amount of goals to assists. Their top 4 point getters or top 5 point getters actually have more goals than assists, all 5 of them. So Jake Laws, you're not the only one that has more goals than assists, like you said last night. You didn't say you were the only one, but I was pointing out there are more. 5 on this team, in fact. But Silent Killer with 14 goals and 12 assists, and Sam 000MX has 11 goals and 8 assists. They've got some point getters. They're 9 points back from the Barracuda and 12 points back from the Condors. That's a gettable point difference there. If they have a couple of solid weeks, they hurt themselves with those 6 straight losses to end the week. but they're playing close games, and it could have very easily been, they could have gone 4-2, 5-1, and they could be sitting up a little bit higher than they are. And this division is tough across the board, as we'll find out as we talk about more teams here. But looking back at their schedule for this week alone, they played the Stockton Heat and lost 5-3. Condors, Rampage, Stars, Barracuda, and Goals. Is that all of them, Mike? Is that their whole conference this week, or the division this week? I think I'm only missing one team. They played almost their entire division this week, and they beat one of the second best team in the division in the Goals. So there's a lot looking up there for this team when they're you lose 6 in a row, but they're all extremely close games. Keep your heads up, guys. You guys are a tough team, and you'll keep it going here. So moving on here now, I think Mike's going to take care of the San Jose Barracuda here.
San Jose Barracuda, and that familiar name of Perkins Pancake House is the GM out there. They got the amazing Pepe as their AGM. If anything, these guys are the picture of consistency this season. They had 4 wins in week 1. They had 6 wins in week 2, and then weeks 3 and 4, they ripped off 5 wins in each week. They're hanging out right in the middle there. They're just on the outside looking in. I think this team is definitely poised to make a run here. They had a couple of big wins this week. They took down San Diego in a 4-3 victory. Then they also took down Rochester, which is not a division game or anything, but Rochester's a tough team. So they took them down this week. Next week, every game that they play is against an Eastern Conference team. So, look to pick up some points next week. San Jose, I think you got a great team out there. Your center Mayhem Killer, he's 9-3 on the year. He's got 10 goals, 23 assists. He's a +10. I think this team is pretty well stacked top to bottom. They may have a little bit of trouble on the back end on a couple of lines, but not too much. Their goalie, Perkins Pancake House, is just a stellar goalie. I think he's one of the best in the league. Like we were talking about earlier, he's faced an inordinate amount of shots, and he's stood tall. I think he's definitely deserving to be the GM out there in San Jose, and sets a great example for his team. What do you think about that, Sibs?
Well, I got a chance to watch that San Jose and Rochester Americans game on Tuesday. The 2-1 San Jose win. We'll talk about Perkins in a second, but I just want to talk about the game for a minute. Good puck movement and passing in this game. If you haven't watched this game, go back and watch it. I urge everybody who plays in the league to watch this game. A lot of great puck movement, great passing. Quick puck movement on both sides. San Jose defense gets the puck out of the zone immediately. As soon as one of their guys on defense gets the puck, bam, it's out of the zone. They don't play with it. They don't dangle it. It's a defenseman. They just get it the hell out. And as a goaltender, that was so noticeable to me. Both teams in that game got the puck on net first, not looking to dance around with it as well. Both defenses did a nice job keeping the slot clear most of the time, and everybody on both teams comes back and plays deep. Not much in the way of rebound chances at all in this game if you watch it. And so when you look at Perkins, he's in the crease almost constantly. I very rarely saw him go past that red line, that arc in the crease. He moves incredibly precisely. I know we've talked about that before. It sounds like a broken record, but to me that is so important for a successful goaltender. Make precision moves, don't overslide. Covers the short side really well, doesn't get stuck on the post, which proves that it can be done. He's always in position for one-timers. He from the point. He sets up on the face-off, comes back to the point. He is ready for that shot, and he doesn't look like he's struggling to reach it like a lot of goaltenders are. He doesn't make big mistakes, no big sweeping moves. He plays the percentages. Opposition in that game, Americans had very little in the way of any golden opportunity to capitalize on. And towards the end of that game, he made a great point-blank save right in front of the net, inside a minute left to go. And I'm going to say this as a goaltender. He is pretty much what you would pray for as an owner and a GM in a goaltender. He does not hurt his team. He helps them when needed, but he puts his team in a position of you only need to work so much, and you know what you're going to get out of him. And to me, he absolutely is one of the best goaltenders in the league because of that. I watched that game a couple of times because of the way he played it. I thought to myself, this is exactly what I have to work on. And I think if you see a player and you say to yourself, he's a model of how you play that position, then he's damn good. I think that goes with that question. So great to see that game. I urge you to watch that. San Jose and the Americans on Tuesday, a 2-1 San Jose win, and they have a solid team up and down, but Perkins is always going to keep them in every game.
I would have to agree with that. One more guy I'd like to point out on their team is Pasta in My Nose. Love the name. He's scooped up 31 points this season, chipping in with 10 goals, 21 assists. He is a +9. They have 3 guys with over 30 points on this team, another couple guys with 20 plus. They're an evenly well-distributed team, and I think they're poised to make a push up into the playoffs come this week should start. And Bakersfield, what do you think about them, VI?
Well, the further up this list we go, the better the teams are going to get, and there's no exception here with the Bakersfield Condors. And they lost their last 2 games of the week, and their goal differential is only a +3. But they're 7-1-2 in their last 10 games, 13-4-1 at home, and they're 8-2-4 in 1-goal games, which means there's only 2 games that they didn't get a point in a 1-goal game, and that's pretty impressive. Looking at their roster here, their GM is Broski002. I'm sure most of you guys out there know him, guys and girls. And he's got 39 points this season, 24 goals, 15 assists. He's a +23, leading the way for that team, almost at 40 points through 12 games. That's averaging almost 4 points a game. It's about 3.6 points a game. And their AGM, Johnny Bearballs, has 24 points in 12 games. He's at 2 points a game, 15 goals, and 9 assists. Looks like they've got a dick on their team, and and he's got 20 points, 11 goals, and 9 assists. Hey, I love the names, man. It's funny. So Blid, if anybody's looking for it. But they've got some point getters on this team. Euler 365's got 31 points. He's got 6 goals and 25 assists. Carlson MVP, he's got 23 points, 17 goals, 6 assists. They've got a solid roster. I'm just saying has 18 points. Jabot 27 has 11 points in 12 games, almost a point a game. And when I'm looking at them, I go back to look at their schedule here, and I wasn't surprised to see a lot of green in this week. They won 3, lost 1, won 3, and lost 2. They played against their losses were against the Americans, the Comets, and the Condors, or the Rampage. I'm sorry, can't lose to yourself, guys. I know, but they play a lot of close games. I mean, their first 4 games of the week, all of them were 1-goal games, and they won 3 of them. And the other one was against Rochester that they lost. One of the best teams in the league. This division is tight, and they're playing tight games with their division foes. You just covered the Barracuda. They were able to pull out a 7-5 win against the Barracuda, followed up by a 4-2 win over the San Diego Gulls. And those are extremely good wins. Those are well-placed wins in the division. Those will help. That will do nothing but help their cause as they're moving here towards the playoffs. They beat the Stars on Monday night. They beat the Stockton Heat in a close game, admittedly for Stockton 3-2, and on Thursday night when they played the Rampage, they lost 5-1. That was the only game this week that was not close. This team is tough, and when you look at their roster, it's not very tough to see why. I do not look forward to playing against teams that are well played through all three lines when you've got teams like, we're struggling a bit over there in Hershey. When you come up against teams that have three solid lines, it doesn't matter who you play. There's never going to be a night off game where you can get back up on your horse and win some easy games. There are none of those, and this division's definitely showing that. Mike, you're going to cover the Stars, I believe, and this team has fallen a little bit.
Well, my buddy Thorpe Clan's over there. He was in he was the GM of the Baby Pens last year, and he's picked up his family and moved them to Texas. And they surprisingly enough, Cotton Kings is one of their AGMs. They're one of the few teams that have two AGMs. Cotton Kings 420 is their AGM, and Overt Enemy. Surprisingly enough, even with Yeep on their team, they only did manage to win 4 games in week 1, which is kind of weird to me. But they did rip off 9 wins in a row in week 2, and then they've kind of faltered a little bit. They only were able to scoop up 3 wins in week 3 and 5 wins last week. So they've kind of gone up and down. They're kind of riding the wave right now, and they need to kind of smooth those waters out and get themselves running consistently. They have the talent to do it. Apex Predator, I think, is definitely one of the better goalies in this league. He's a great player out there. He's sitting at 13-7-1. He's got an 83.1 save percentage, 3.1 goals against average. He's a very, very good player. He's taken on almost 300 shots this year. It's going to be tough for them to climb. They're still sitting right in it. They're sitting in a playoff spot currently, I believe. They're sitting at 6th in the Western Conference. They did falter a little bit, but I have full confidence in Thorpe Clan to get these guys really, really firing on all cylinders here in the coming weeks. Thorpe himself has a 7-4 record this season. He's sitting at 21 points. He's got 12 goals, 9 assists. He is a plus 12. He's taken 5 penalties this year, but you know what? That happens. I have confidence in him to kind of trim that back a little bit and maybe not take too many more throughout the season. They have a bunch of guys that are sitting in double-digit points. They got Junior DC who's sitting at 30 points. They have made some trades. They made a big trade with the Albany Devils last weekend, and I don't quite remember who exactly was involved in that trade. But yeah, we'll leave that one alone. You gotta dip over there. You gotta get some of that too. But Haji plays for them. Who if anybody doesn't know, he is the commissioner. He's a great player. He's sitting at 14 points this season with 9 goals, 5 assists. He is a plus 12 though, which is huge. I think Texas has nowhere to go but up, and I think they're going to continue to stay where they're at. I think they're going to smooth those waters out, and they're going to hang in there. And I don't see them falling out of the playoffs by any stretch of the imagination. I think they're going to steady that ship, and they're just going to climb right back up them standings. And like we've said, it's really close over here in the Western Pacific. The top 4 teams are only separated by 4 points. Any night those top 4 teams can be shifted and changing, and with a win here and a loss there, boom, you're sitting in 4th, or all of a sudden, boom, you're sitting in 5th, and you're like, oh, what the hell just happened? So, that's going to be a very, very interesting little, that's going to be an interesting division to watch because it is so close. There's so many teams right there within it. that they could, anybody could either, gain ground or lose ground in a matter of one night out there. So, Texas is definitely one of those teams that I don't think is going to lose much ground. I think they're going to kind of hold steady, maybe climb up a little bit. But team they're chasing in the San Diego Gulls is a very good team along with the Rampage. But San Diego has a fantastic team out there. And what do you got written up for them, Jonathan?
Well, San Diego is full of a bunch of talent. Before I say any player names here, I want you to listen to these numbers: 18, 12, 16, 34, 41, 43, 23, 31, 33, 20, 16, 15, 12. That is most of their roster's point totals for each individual player. Almost every single player on their roster is in double-digit points, and with a couple of them sitting over 40. With Gerg's 28, got to give him another shout-out because we do love that name. As you can see this way behind me, my jersey. Danny Cade 2399 has 41 points. This guy must be referred to on his team as the distributor because he's got 41 points. He's only got 14 goals and 27 assists, and he's a plus 29. That's impressive. If I'm going through here talking about players I want to pull for my team, or next season during bidding, and I'm looking at guys, if I see a guy who's got 2-to-1 assists to goals, setting up his teammates and has a high point total, that's a guy I'm going to be looking at hard because guys who set people up in this league are key to winning. And they're run over there by Taste. He's their GM. He's got 12 points, 2 goals, 10 assists, and their AGM is a buddy of mine, Ransom 613. I mentioned him last week. We've talked a little bit since the season got going. He's had some ideas for the show. I love the involvement. Sometimes he gets in the shout box and says some things, so I haven't seen him there in a few days. But a lot of these guys on this team, other than the double-digit point totals for most of these players on here, Stivvy's the league leader in defensive points with 31, 5 goals and 26 assists. What I notice is records. They've got they've got 4 guys with a 10-1-1 record on their team, and their goalie Gauthier 26. 15-5-2. What can you say? That guy's an incredible goalie. There are some good goalies in this league, and Gauthier is definitely one of them. If Sibs were here, he would probably attest to. He talked about him last week a little bit, I believe, maybe 2 weeks ago. But you also have Master V277 on defense. He's got 16 points in 12 games. He's got 3 goals and 13 assists. Sorry, something caught my eye there. But he's a plus 30, which is huge for a defenseman. When I look at their schedule across the entire season, this week they only went 5-4. They played some really close games. They lost a close one to the Barracuda. They lost a close one to the Condors. Are you trying to say something?
What?
Oh, I thought you put your hand up. Oh, you had something to say on that game. They lost to the Crunch 4-1, but they beat the Hartford Wolfpack in a close 5-4 game. They shut out the Marlies 1-0 on Thursday night. When you go through and look, they win in bunches. It seems like they'll have a loss here, and then they'll win 3 straight. They'll lose and then they'll win 2, and they'll lose and they'll win 1. There's only 2 times this season that they've lost back-to-back games. Week 2 they lost 3 in a row to end the week and came back with a win to start the next week against the Stars in the game that we highlighted last week. And then they lost 2 in a row to the Americans and then the Falcons, but then they rattled off 5 in a row. This team is an incredible team, and just like the Stars are. The Stars faltered a little bit, but they're only 1 point behind the Gulls, and the Gulls are only 2 points behind the Rampage. Other than the Wolves at 54 points and the Ice Hogs at 59 points, the rest of the teams at the top of the Western Conference, and especially within the Pacific Division, they're all within 5 points of each other, or 7 points of each other. Rampage 48, Gulls 46, Stars 45, Condors 44, and Barracuda 41. 1 win, 2 wins here or there, and these teams are all shaken up, and that's what you see every week here is different teams are moving up and down this division leaderboard. But the Gulls seem to be consistently up at the top and moving their way up again this week. Though the Rampage finished the week hot with 5 wins, and I think you have something you want to say about them.
Well, the Rampage, Mooner, they've really caught fire. They started out fairly rough, not rough, but they like most teams, they didn't get out of the gates the strongest. They had 4 wins in week 1, 4 wins in week 2. Then they ripped off 9 wins in week 3. They actually ended up winning 11 in a row. When you put together a run like that, what that does is catapults you right up into the position that they're currently sitting in. They did come back down to earth a little bit, lost 4 in a row, but then they turned around and won 5 in a row to finish the week off. I think the Rampage are really starting to find their legs out there. I think Mooner's done a great job getting the guys that he needs to play his style of hockey. They're still giving up a little bit too many shots for me, but so are we. They got a great backstop like Mooner. They're definitely going to be able to hang with anybody in that Western Conference, if not the league. They got Timmy Z sitting at 43 points. FML sitting at 32 points. So they've got the talent now, and it's just a matter of them keeping consistent and not having a bad week, and they're going to be right there at the top of the Western Pacific when the season wraps up and looking for a playoff spot. So I think San Antonio's done a very good job coming back from that 4 wins in week 1 to really become a force to be reckoned with in the Western Conference.
Yeah, I agree. One of the reasons that they're sitting up there at the top of their division right now is their 1-goal games. They're 9-2 and 4 in 1-goal games, which means that they've played 16 games that are 1-goal games, and there's only been 2 games that they didn't get a point in. That's huge. Like we've said, we've pointed out that one of the biggest things that you can do as a team when you're talking about positioning yourself for the playoff run is winning close battles, especially with division opponents, as we discussed with this playoff format to start the show. You have to win close games, and division games are going to be key to making your way into the playoffs. And one of the things that I notice when I look at them, they're 9-5 and 3 at home, but they are 13-5 and 1 on the road. I just wanted to echo that because that's a big deal. They're with what's been going on with the network. To win your road games, which seem like they've been tougher to do, 13-5 and 1. That's really impressive. They have a 33+ in the goal differential, 133 for and 100 against. And like you said, the little bit of a shaky start there for them. They've gotten it together. They have won a lot of games in the last couple of weeks, and they don't really show any signs of stopping. And, they've almost reached that 50-point plateau, which I'm sure they'll do fairly quickly next week. But they're a team to watch out for, and I don't see them falling back.
Not at all. They do have every game this week is against Eastern Conference opponents, which is strange. That's 2 teams. I didn't even really look at the other ones because that was you who was covering them. But I wonder if that entire division is playing Eastern Conference teams next week in every game. That'd be something interesting to look up. But you know, I think that they're, you know, the Rampage are they're the real deal. You know, and you know, they're coming for you. They're going to be right there at the top when the season ends, on their way into the playoffs to make some noise. And with a goaltender like Mooner, you got to think that they're going to go deep if and when they get to the playoffs.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, our very first podcast that we did, we were highlighting certain teams and certain players, and you brought up Mooner as the top goaltender from last season, and he is he's really turning it back on. You know, he wasn't. We were surprised to not see him at the top of the list there after week one. But slowly, you know, week after week, he's plugging away and he's moving his way up to the top of that leaderboard, running a tight ship over there. And it's good to see a familiar face move back up there to the top, that's for sure. But I must say, when we play against him, I hope we put up 10.
I hope he doesn't play. That's where I'm at with it. But Sibs, are you still playing your games over there?
No, we just had an overtime game in the second game. About half a minute ago. So that's 2 in a row. We're gonna get the third one in about 10 minutes. We got to play the third one. So.
Well, we're getting close here. Just going back to the poll question that I posted earlier in the show. You know, two of the answers are fairly similar to each other, except one is more direct. But the question again was the wraparound goal. Is it a skill? I use it. That's got 3 votes at 11%. Cop out, it's exploited. That has 11 votes in second place, 40.7%. If used appropriately, useful, otherwise exploded, that's got 12 votes at 44.4%. And again, that's the way I tend to lean. You know, it definitely gets exploited by some people, but it can be a useful goal as long as it's not the only thing you're looking for. And then I'm a goalie, who cares? I think Sibs voted for that one. It's got 1 vote. And it's at 3.7. Yeah. Didn't have time to vote. You were in the game.
Well, you know how. Actually, that's an interesting answer that you put in there, because actually it's the goalies who will scream the loudest about something like that. So.
Right. Oh well, I didn't finish the. It was I'm a goalie. Who cares? I stop everything in parentheses.
I clearly wouldn't vote for that. Not with a 5 goals against average. So.
Don't beat yourself up too bad.
Well, I'm no Mooner. What can I tell you?
Not very many people are.
Well, I mean, those are interesting findings. Again, like I said, majority of the players are not goaltenders, so I'm not surprised to see that there are guys who don't think it's a big deal. And I think, like I said, the gaming aspect of it plays a part of this. But you know, I think it's part of a bigger discussion about what NHL 17 is going to be, and what are they going to do to address?
Board monster.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Maybe because I'm more involved in it, and maybe that could be the reason. But it seems like I'm hearing a lot more feedback before 17 than I did before 16. And again, could be because I'm in leagues, could be because I have a lot more PSN friends now, but. It just seems like, you know, there were complaints about 15 for sure, of course, but I feel like there's a lot more feedback about, hey, I'd like to, not 16 sucks and here's what I hate about it, more about here's what I'd like to see in the game now. Here are some more realistic things that should be added, and it's good because
brought back.
Yeah, or brought back, exactly right. And I think you've even talked about that a little bit, Mike. I know some of the guys. Some of the defensemen are happy because they're going to be able, at least they think, tie people up. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and there are a couple of other things that you spoke about that you thought should come back into the game too.
Yeah, the pushing the puck forward. You know, when you used to be able to, I think it was L1. You used to be able to hit L1 and push the puck up in front of you and skate up into it when you're on a breakaway, so you're not, you know, because you know, if you get the space to get a breakaway in this game. You know, those defensemen, whoever you beat, bang, they're right on you immediately. Like, it's just to be able to push it back up in front of you or hold it out with one hand like you used to be able to, and do the big old windmill deke. You know, there's a lot of little things like that. Tying up in front of the net is going to be huge, and I'm super excited to see where they go with the series next season and see what they do bring back. You know, creative play, practice mode, a lot of that stuff is very nice to have again.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. The tying up in front of the net's probably the thing I'm looking forward to the most, because that was such a huge part of my game, especially as a defenseman. But even as a center, or if you cycle in as a winger to the front of the net, being able to tie up and get yourself in position to deflect pucks, that's huge. Or to be able to tie somebody up on defense and push them out of the way and defend the play without letting them get to it. One thing I wanted to bring up, there were 84 broadcasts to the site this week for Twitch, like linked accounts that were actually broadcast through the site. You know, of course, we don't know how many were actually broadcast total, but through the site there were 84. And last week, when we were talking, there were 83. We only got one more stream up to the site this week than we had last week. Now, there's 135 games. I know all of the Hershey Bears games are not on right now. We're going to get that fixed hopefully this weekend. But it's very, very simple. Again, there's a thread on the main page for LGAHL that's pinned to the top to show you how to link your Twitch account. I saw in the GM's chat a couple of guys talking about it last week after our show, and one of the things people are missing is they're linking their account properly and everything, but they're not going to the shout box after they start streaming their game, before their game starts, and just pressing that little purple Twitch button.
Well, you know, it's funny because for the longest time, I'm one of the guys who actually, you know, proposed that, but I don't need to do that now, and I'm not sure exactly what changed in my profile. Maybe because I redid it a few times, and maybe it finally took. But the system's picking up my games now, so you shouldn't have to hit that button. But you know, if you're not seeing it when the game's about to start, and obviously we've talked about this, 15 minutes before the game starts, they start looking for your stream if you are in the game. So if you start it, you know, 10 minutes before airtime, and you wait 5 minutes and it's still not there, then maybe I would suggest hitting that button. But give it a chance. Let's see if that actually happens.
Just one last thing on that. Let's, as a league here, let's try and get our games starting at the right time instead of going 10, 15 minutes late.
It does seem like games across the league, NHL, AHL, we've played several in each league. You know, it does seem like games are starting later and later. You know, remember, guys, we start at, you know, 9:30 and 10:30. That does not change for us. You know, it seems like, I mean, we've started some games very late this week because we were waiting on invites. Or, I mean, I'm talking like, you know, past quarter of, like well past the 15 minutes that you're allotted. So just be aware of that moving forward. But,
and it makes it tougher on your NHL teams to ECU guys and things like that. It really makes it tough for guys to get out of that game and into the next one if you start that late. So it's just something we wanted to bring up and just kind of point out, you know, we're not yelling at you, but we want to try and make an effort, you know, get together 5 minutes, 10 minutes before the game, get in your party, and then send the invite 2 or 3 minutes ahead of time, and people jump right in and get this going.
But I do want to say, you know, hopefully everybody has a good week here, and, you know, just get out there and get after it. You know, I hope everybody has a good, solid week here coming up in week 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys very much again for listening. We really appreciate it. We definitely see you next week.